This has really been a powerful, beautiful season, and we often take like 30 minutes in our staff meetings to share all the testimonies of what God's doing. We maybe just need to do that in here sometime so y'all can hear everything, because if you could hear what's going on, your mind would be blown. And I actually just thought about sharing one story recently. Do y'all want to hear a story? Would that be okay? This is not about my sermon at all. But we actually I just preached a series about freedom with some other people on our staff. And one day I talked about freedom from anxiety and called people forward who needed prayer. And one young lady came forward and got to pray with some folks who are up here at the front. And we got this text from her soon after where she said, she was checking in a couple weeks later and said, just want you to know I've had so much breakthrough and it's been incredible. I really did feel that something broke off of me that morning. I have had moments of anxiety here or there since, but the difference is now I'm able to immediately recognize it and speak truth. I think I would have told you before then that I had mild anxiety in my life, but it truly was overtaking me. I had planned what letters to write to my husband and child if I got terminally ill, thought through practical steps if my baby has a terrible disease. The list goes on. This has been a lifelong thing. I can remember from 5 years old thinking how I would take care of my baby sister if my parents both died, or how I would escape a school shooting, until it lifted. Then I could see how strong the enemy had held me. So thank you so much for praying that day. The prayer team had a word about the Lord rewiring her brain, and I have seen that to be true. The last month has been the most free I have been in my life. Isn't that beautiful? When Carl was preaching, she said, I felt like the Lord told me to come in to pray to this specific person to pray for her, but she was scared and didn't want to interrupt that person, and then said, thanks for taking the time for praying for me. It's literally been changing my life. I mean, this is why we do what we do. As we often say, we're not playing games around here. We want to meet with the living God. We actually got this follow-up yesterday, and this is a good snapshot maybe of how these two sermon series tie together, and appreciated her vulnerability when she said that her husband had struggled with pornography most of his life. He had confessed early in her marriage, and we thought it through, but the week that Chase Moore preached, he came forward. After Chase preached, her husband came forward that he'd been struggling again with this. Then the next week, Carl spoke on sexual addiction, and it was so challenging and encouraging for my husband. In the time since, he has experienced freedom in a new way. It's a process, as Carl said it would be, but my husband's been jumping into accountability and into our men's groups that have been started, and it's been amazing. Let me just pause right here for a second before I read the rest of what she wrote. Because if you were here last week, Jimmy shared this discipleship diagram with you, because this is the 4 ways we see discipleship playing out here at Antioch Waco. And you see on this diagram, and what we say is the things on the left side of the diagram are things that we should all be doing all the time. The things on the right side of the diagram are things that we should be doing some of the time as God leads. Peer, mentoring, evangelistic, which Jimmy will share about next week, and the intensive discipleships. And what you see happening here in this young man is he's now walking in a peer-based accountability discipleship group, moving him forward, but is a part of an intensive that we're doing right now called some Conqueror groups, where we're meeting on Sunday nights. We've got 90 or 95 men showing up on Sunday nights saying we want to take our purity seriously and going to deeper levels of purity. So that's what she's talking about. When I read that, I was like, that's exactly why we can't just preach sermons. This has to make its way between Sundays if freedom's going to be sustained and if we really are going to make disciples. And so let me just continue with what she wrote. She said, I felt like I should share this with you because our entire family, baby's future included, has been so impacted by the Freedom series. It was raw, open, and hard, but I've never been so envisioned for freedom in our lives and in the church. That's what we're all about, friends, and that's what we've been doing throughout this discipleship series. Week 1, we talked about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Week 2, how to make disciples. And Jimmy shared and gave everybody 7 accountability questions you could even infuse into your times. I want everybody to take your phone out right now and take a picture of these 7 questions. They are on our blog. You could actually go to that too, but you won't. So take a picture of this right here. For those of you in life groups, you've been following with our videos that we've been making. Thank you for bearing through my voice for 20 minutes in your life groups. And in week 3, I'm going to say some things that this will fit into. So in the 3rd week, this is going to fit right into week 3. So I want you to have this and insert it into your discipleship times and in relationships so that you can have something to take you to the next level, okay? Because here's the reason that we're doing this. You know, we may have heard us say this before. We value life groups so much. But right now, only about 60% of people in our church are involved in a life group. But if life group's the primary vehicle where discipleship takes place around here, we need more opportunities for people to get plugged into a small group. So we actually want to see 110% of our people involved in a life group. Meaning, we don't want just everyone in our church involved in a life group. We actually want to see the day where there's more people in our city involved in small groups than even go to our church, because we are reaching outside of the four walls of this place and touching people's lives. So in order to help do that, because we don't have enough life groups for everybody, we're going to be starting a new thing. Jimmy and I are launching a new series in October and November of this year together. And in order to get the full breadth of what's going to be going on in this series, we're going to need everybody in a small group, because we're going to tag team it as well as some other stuff that's going to be happening during this 6 or 7 week period. And so we are going to be starting about 200 what we're calling host groups during that time. And these are not in place of life groups. They actually run alongside of host groups. And these are going to be running during that time so that you can sign up to either host a group or to be in a group, so that everyone in our church gets a chance to take part of this spiritual growth moment that's going to be happening in our time together. So actually, if you'd like to host one of those groups, thank you to the 13 of you who signed up last week to do it. Now we need about 200 more. And before that time, host stands for 4 things. Have a heart for people. You can open your home, serve a snack, and turn on the videos that you're going to be watching, okay? If you think you can manage that and would like to be able to help us out with that, you can get more information here at the end, and we'll show you how you can jump in with us in this coming up a little bit later. This is how serious we are about seeing discipleship happen in these 4 walls and beyond. And again, if you keep going, why are y'all so passionate about this? In January, we did a vision night, and we talked about what it means not just to go to this church, but to own the vision of the church. Those are 2 different things. And we said there's 5 things you can do to be an owner of the church. One more graphic for you, and here's what they are. We said the first thing is that you would be surrendered to Jesus. That's what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. And then to be in a life group, to be involved in discipleship. Those 2 areas are where we see the making disciples part playing out. And then tithing and volunteering. And that's not just something that we made up. This is stuff we see in the first century church. And so today I'm going to hit that 5th component, that volunteering piece, because this one actually straddles the line between being one and making one. And again, when we first started the church, it was pretty obvious for the first few hundred people to understand this, and it was a little smaller then. As we've grown, we felt like it's more imperative than ever to make that link back to not just the early days, but the first century days of the first church. Look at the model of what they did and follow suit. So we're going to do that today. We're going to look into the book of Acts, because when you read that book, there's a lot of parallels between what was going on in their day and what is going on in our church in this day. And we're going to see one of those things played out in the text we're going to look at today as we go verse by verse through Acts chapter 6. So turn there if you would, for the person who brought their Bible. The rest you will look at the screen. Acts chapter 6 verse 1 says, in those days when the number of blank was increasing. Let me just fill it in. This right here is a movement that's going on called Christianity. So it says when the number of Christians was increasing, right? No, all of you who saw the video, good job. You all saw the video. No, it does not say that. The word Christian won't be introduced till 10 chapters after Jesus left planet Earth. It says when the numbers of disciples was increasing. That's exactly right. So Jesus has left, and 3,000 people have joined this movement, not even called Christians. They are noticed as those who have been with Jesus, but they are the disciples of Jesus, all right? And this is what it says is going on. The Grecian Jews among them complained against the Hebraic Jews. Your text may say the Hellenist Jews. And let me explain what that means. The Hebraic Jews are those who lived in Israel, especially around Jerusalem. The Grecian Jews, these are those Jewish people, but they lived all over the world, and they were more Greek than they were Hebrew, so they retained their Judaism, but they also picked up stuff in Greek culture, and they stayed true to a lot of their Greek culture that was going on in that day as well. Then Passover happens, and a lot of stuff around that 50-day time period. And people are coming up around the temple to take part from all over the world to be a part of what's going on. And during that time, Jesus comes back to life. One of the leaders, Peter, preaches a gospel. 3,000 get added in a day, and a lot of those people just stay there. So now we have lots of different types of people eating meals together, doing life together, being disciples together, but there's a problem. And now we're about to look at the first church problem. I'm going to show you today, by the way, the first church problem and the first church miracle, okay? First church problem is this. Their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So we have some ladies who have become widows. During that time, it would have been very hard for them to work anymore, to find any kind of financial provision. And the church said, we'll take you guys on. And this is a vulnerable group of people. We're going to serve them, and we're going to love them. So that whoever is relating to these widows comes up and says, hey, y'all are doing some great things here as a church for sure. As this thing's growing, great job. But there's a whole group of people that y'all aren't taking care of. These out-of-towners are not getting what they need. And that can happen in a growing church. You can see a lot of great things happening, but little individuals not getting connected. And so you see right here, the church leaders are going, we have to do something about that, okay? But here's what you have to understand. There's no church structure. Like, it's not like they showed up at the receptionist desk and said, can you connect me to the food pantry? They're like, sure, line 1. There is no structure. It is 12 guys who are just going after God, thousands of disciples who have said, we'll do the same. It's just this beautiful mess called a movement, all right? That's what's going on. And that's, again, what happens is healthy things grow, but then when growth takes off, if we don't take care of that growth, then it ends up doing sometimes damage. And so they realize this could actually cause some harm and pain. What are we going to do about it? They have to fix this problem. Verse 2. So the 12 gathered all the who? Together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the word in order to wait on tables. Now, there's a lot of debate around this passage. People think maybe Peter was a little big for his britches now and said he didn't want to wash any tables or serve anybody. I have a hard time with that because it wasn't that long ago that the smell of fish and bread was on his hand from passing out food to 5,000 people. And he had walked next to his rabbi who had looked at them and said, I did not come to be served. I came to serve. And they would have said, then we'll do the same. And they would have attached. So I don't think that they were trying to say we're too big for this. I think they were making a loud statement and a loud invitation. The statement was that the church was never intended to be owned and run off the backs of a few people. It was never supposed to be around one powerful person or a few very talented people. This was an invitation. It should not just be about us. Everybody should play. We should all be a part of this together. Now, what's interesting to me, though, is that they didn't say, we need some volunteers. Can 7 to 10 of you guys raise some hands and go pass out some food? Okay, I see you. Yeah, okay. That's not what happens at all. Verse 3, they make a statement. Brothers and sisters, choose 7 men from among you who are known to be full of the Spirit and wisdom. Pause there. How much wisdom and power do you need to pass out food to some longtime church members? Okay, we'll come back to that in just a moment, okay? Acts chapter 6, verse 3 and 4 says, but we will turn this responsibility over to them, and we will give our attention to prayer and to the ministry of the word. I think this is so powerful and so beautiful because this is a huge leadership move. If you study leadership, leaders have a tendency to build things so people need them. Then they feel needed, therefore feel significant, feel powerful. Families do this, organizations do this, churches do this. They are making a big decision here. It's not going to be all about us. We're going to start putting empowerment into the people. And it says we're going to turn the responsibility over to them. So they say that they're going to pick 7 people who have these 2 different things, full of wisdom and of the Holy Spirit. And I love those 2 components, meaning these people are practically minded, but filled with God's presence for whatever's about to show up and come down the pipe at them, okay? And I'm thankful that they are because these guys are about to encounter a bunch of money. So basically, people had taken their land and stuff and sold it and said, here's the money. And they're going to take some of that money and give it to these guys and say, oversee this money and this delicate, vulnerable group of people, y'all are over them. They needed people practically minded and filled with the presence of God for what could come up and face them during that time. So this is the reason that they needed those 2 things. This is not just a Meals on Wheels program, as good as that is. This was basically saying, this is a spiritual mission we're a part of. You don't fulfill spiritual missions with just basic earthly means. So we've got to make sure that they have the Spirit stuff right, filled with wisdom, filled with the Holy Spirit. And so then we can take that type of person, we can put them anywhere. Let's take care of this special group of people that means so much to our body that we're not doing so great at right about now. The result is the first church miracle. Are y'all ready to learn what the first church miracle was? Here it is. Chapter 6, verse 5. This proposal pleased the whole group. If you're new to church, let me bring you in to about 4 decades of that hasn't happened since. When you say a proposal and the whole church goes, we're in, Spirit of God has shown up. Look up, because he might be coming through the clouds. He's about to arrive. The whole group goes, we're in, sounds good. That's a great idea. Absolutely unbelievable to me. And they decide they're going to expand their team. They're not just going to say, we're run off the backs of a few. No, this was supposed to be a mission owned by all. They're going to jump in. And so, next verse, let's see who they choose. Verse 5 says, so they chose Stephen, a man gifted in waiting tables and who had a personality bent on helping widows. Right? Some Bible scholar help me. No, that's not what it said. I try to do this every once in a while where I throw a heretical verse up there to see if anybody catches it, okay? This is not in the Bible. Just because it's on the screen doesn't mean it's in the Bible, okay? Little Bible, okay? So let me help you understand why a lot of people went, makes sense. I mean, he's been at Chili's for a few years. Whenever we're talking to him, it's always to someone about 2 decades older. Let's have that guy go over, okay? But his personality has nothing to do with gifting or his gift, what he's doing has nothing to do with gifting or personality. In fact, you read Stephen's story a little later on, I would have loved to hear that guy preach. He is a gifted communicator. He's walking in signs and wonders that is drawing tons of people in. His gift assessment would have not said, guy is good at passing out bread. It would have said, give him hundreds to speak in front of in impossible scenarios, and he'll bring the impossible. They go and they get that guy. Here's what the real verse says, okay? This is really in the Bible. Verse 5, they chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the Holy Spirit, also Philip. Now, I put that in there because Philip was the great evangelist. Some great miracles, some amazing things that Philip does a little later. So again, they actually credit the gospel coming to Ethiopia due to some things that Philip did. Maybe even beyond Ethiopia into Africa. So his gift assessment would have not said administration, bread person. But yet they choose him anyway. And I want you to catch this, because what that means is the disciples at that time had a conviction to go to the point of greatest need. Did you hear that? The disciples at that time had a conviction. We go to the point of greatest need. And that's why I said that this message straddles the line of being one and making one, because that's what Jesus did. When Jesus showed up, he'd go to one village and a blind man would say, would you heal me? And he would heal them. Next village, kids are all around him and people are blocking him. He's like, no, bring the kids to me. He went to the point of greatest need, eventually meeting all of our most ultimate, greatest need. And by the way, you get this more than you even realize. You do this. I do this. We all find ourselves having to do this, where we're looking at our life going, what am I doing right now? Or someone might even ask you, why are you doing that? For example, I get asked to do a lot of weddings. Can't do all of them, but I've done my share. What they mean is, will you stand there and say some vows and then give us rings and get us married? That's what they mean. But Jimmy and I have often said that we would love to start a wedding and marriage business because of how many times we've shown up and done everything but that. Because what was in that bride's mind did not quite show up on that day. And we have put flowers on people. We have helped people with their hair. We've done taking pictures. One wedding, I showed up, they had not remembered that the food was way over there and we were eating way over there and they didn't have anybody to serve the food once it got there. And I will never forget Blair and I running with big pans of barbecue across a field. And people were like, what are you doing? And you don't stop then and go, well, I'm kind of a vows and rings guy, At that moment, you're a barbecue person. And really, we should all be barbecue people, by the way. That should just be who we are in our guts as Texans. But in that moment, you're really a barbecue guy. And no one's like, oh, sweet guy. I bet if we looked at his gifting assessment, it's barbecue carrier. No, and you do the same thing. You tell your kids the same thing when they're like, I don't want to take the trash out. That's not my gift. You're like, I got a gift for you. It's kind of instinctive, but it wasn't instinctive in this scenario. And so the disciples had to say, let's put some people full of wisdom in the Holy Spirit who can step in and go to the point of greatest need. Now, little Bible trivia. Turn to your neighbor and list one of the other 5 that I did not say who were a part of the 7. Ready, go. Oh, I love the blank stares. Thanks for not talking to your neighbor, but staring at me, okay? Did anybody get Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, and Nicholas from Antioch? You should have gotten that guy. Y'all all go there. A convert to Did anybody get one of those 5? Anybody get them? Vincent, you went to Truett. No? And you didn't even get it, okay? If I would not have been preparing this sermon, I would not have gotten it. And that's what I love about this verse. We ought to memorize it this week as a part of our series. Because these are the men I'm calling the hidden 5. We know a few of the other exploits, and this is sometimes what happens in churches. You know a couple names, but it is always a result of the hidden ones who are seeing God do amazing things, but it's only because there's some people who are behind the scenes putting all the pieces together so you can experience this. Here's what I want you to understand about what you showed up at church today. Or if you're streaming and watching, here's what we believe about church. We believe the church holds and stewards God's plan of redemption for planet Earth. Like, it changes lives. Marriages shift because of this message. Addictions break off because of this message. Families come together. Prodigals come home. Those who feel far from God get cleansed, washed, forgiven, and come back because of this message. This is why we always say God, the local church is the hope of the world. We plant churches because we steward this message and want this message to get out. And we don't think this message just changes people's lives. We think it affects their life after life, which is much longer than how much they spent on planet Earth. So therefore, we are unapologetic about inviting everyone to be a part of this mission because it is the glorious privilege of the church, though sometimes the roles you serve seem like barbecue carriers. It's the glorious role of the church to be able to say, doing what I'm doing for the sake of someone's life now and their afterlife later. And it's in the hearts and the hands of the people who are in hidden rooms making this work. For example, a lot of you liked the video that we showed of my dad sharing his story. He's gotten a lot of high fives, as have I. Yet I was in the room looking across at Dad, trying not to either laugh or cry based on what he was sharing. But you didn't see the guy that showed up early and set up the camera. You didn't see the guy that set up the lights, that he worked through the night, multiple nights, to make sure that you could walk in the door and see that video. And that's exactly what our church is like. You saw maybe one person, but there were people in the shadows who were putting all these pieces together so that you could walk in the door and everybody's like, can we show that like every week for the next year? That'd be awesome, thanks. Why? God's presence showed up because of what was going on. And it's at least one of my favorite things about the church. It's these hidden ones who are working together for the sake of Jesus getting glory and getting that glory story to somebody else. During this message, you've been impacted by people in hidden rooms and you don't even know it. I mean, every Sunday I show up, I'm supposed to show up at 7:45. It's usually like 7:50 or later. And I usually have my little girls with me and they serve in the toddlers. And so they follow me around everywhere I go. And one day we were leaving church and my youngest, Mackenzie, she's now 12 as of Friday. And she said, Dad, who are those people in the hidden room? And I was like, what? She's like, the people in the hidden room. And I go, and I'm thinking, that sounds like we have like some church basement with some shady stuff happening, like Jimmy's down there shooting dice. Like, I have no idea what she's talking about. I'm like, honey, I am lost. And she's like, when you get to church, the first thing you do is you go to the hidden room and you meet with those people who are like serving the church. And I was like, oh, you mean NASA? She's like, what? I'm like, that's what we call like our video production room. Now, this is the team that they take all the graphics and the notes and all the pictures I've been showing, and they organize all of that chaos so that when you walk in the door, all you're thinking is listen to Carl, look up, look down, and it flows very smoothly. You don't even think twice about that. The reason is that they are in a closet in our church most of you don't know exists, and most of you've never seen. So I thought I would just take you there right now. Does that sound okay? Do y'all want to see the video broadcast room? So I'm just going to take it. Now, here's the deal. I had to show up early. I didn't get there that early, sorry. But anyway, and we had to practice this, and we lied to all of them, okay? This is the only time you're allowed to lie. And we told them we're going to be honoring people who are in our information desk. And while we love people who are in our information desk, here is our video broadcast room. Look at these powerhouses here. These are the guys who are making the camera shots happen. Actually, if you're streaming right now, it's because of them. And they don't know I'm going to do this, but I need everybody to leave your post. And we're going to pray to God the whole church doesn't shut down. And I need y'all to follow me as we all come back in. Come on, here we go. Let's make it in. Here we go. Get on in there. Come on. Here we go. Josh Barber, get in here. Come on. Come on. Y'all all got dressed for this. Got your hair done perfectly for it. Love that, Josh. Good job. Come on. Give it up for them, everybody. All right. They really didn't know this was happening, okay? So we're totally freaking these guys out. But y'all can take a seat. But so thankful. Trey, Josh Barber serves like in college ministry as well. Y'all come from the front. I want them to see. I want you to get in the light here. Jonathan McElroy takes the chaos I give him. And even this morning, there was some miscommunications about everything I needed. And he was like, that's okay. Here's what we do. And just to take what Jimmy and I have in our heads and make it a reality, they deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. Actually, y'all seen Jimmy's notes. Jimmy's notes, just reading his notes, it's like walking on water. So they pull off the unfathomable week after week. Dave's learning about graphics right now, already been serving the last couple of weeks. Jamie Tarvin's done like a billion things, and his son plays every instrument. Josh Halleck is in our youth ministry. So this is one of our high school students serving week in and week out. And I wanted to give you guys a little gift here, all right? And I know that these guys, they just see themselves as everyday disciples of Jesus, and that's about it. But again, we see you as more. Actually, the people in Acts 6 would agree. These guys are pillars in our house. And here's the thing about pillars. Most of you walked in, we have pillars all around, and most of you didn't walk in and go, we love your pillars. Those are so nice. Like, y'all didn't even notice we have pillars. But if we pulled a Samson moment right now and knocked them down, everybody'd be like, we need us some pillars. Like you would all of a sudden notice the importance of pillars. And if these guys were gone, actually we had to practice someone going in there and pushing buttons so that everything doesn't fall apart while they're up here. If they don't show up, if they don't do their jobs, then we just lose everything. And here's what I want to do. Tim Sapp, get up here. Tim Sapp, come on. Come on. Aaron Peach, get up here. Come on. Where's Aaron? Aaron. Tim, now these guys are also a part of it. And the reason I wanted them is because they serve in a million ways. And Tim even showed up this morning, just checked on his family back there in the video broadcast room. He's not serving today. And we realized we had a no-show at camera 1 or camera 2 or whatever it is. And he's like, I'll do it. And he's just been jumping up. He's just been running the camera this morning. This is what I'm talking about, the little things we do. So if you're going to honor pillars, then you need to give gifts of hammers, all right? So come on up here, guys. And we would like to give you some of the very first ever golden hammers that are being awarded to all of you. And these golden hammers, thank you, Owen, just start passing them out. We expect these to be on your mantle the next time we come to your house. Does that sound good? Now we need all of you to go back to there so that the church doesn't erupt and implode. Give it up one more time for our guys in the hidden room. I love honoring these guys, and I hope you caught the fact that we called them pillars. Because as of today, March 31st, 2019, we no longer have volunteers at Antioch Community Church. We have pillars. Actually, if you are volunteering right now as a life group leader, yes, you'll be called life group leader, but you're a pillar. If you're one of our STARS mentors, you're a pillar. If you serve in our kids ministry, you're a pillar. If you're going to host a group this coming fall, then you're a pillar. And we're going to be calling people pillars, passing out golden hammers, because it really is the hidden rooms that pull off the mission of the church. And as we get ready to go into the summer and in the fall, we are going to need 100% of our people presenting an Acts 6 moment where they step up and say, I don't know that I feel like I've got it all together, but I can serve at the point of greatest need. What is that? And jump right in. Now, I want to jump back into our story here of Acts chapter 6 to see what played out. I want to give you guys some hope about what happens when people sign up for hidden rooms. It says here in chapter 6, verse 6, hopefully they're back there by now. I've had to stall until they could do that. It says, they presented these men to the apostles who prayed and laid their hands on them. Now, what do you think verse 7 is going to say? It would say, and the widows were fed and the problem was solved. It's what we would think it would say because that's what happens. You serve, need met, boom. Verse 7. I'm sorry, the end of, not verse 7, the rest of verse 6. Nope, it is verse 7, I'm sorry. So the word of God spread. The number of what? Disciples in Jerusalem increased rapidly. How did 7 people feeding widows lead to an explosion in the church? Because key people saw a critical need and stepped in and said, I'll take what God's done in me and I'll give it to somebody else. And the flame begins to fan out and touch people all over the place. Here's what I want you to see. It's not always easy. Actually, these guys get here earlier than I do. They stay after I do. These guys work hard, as do so many of the pillars around our church. If you go on and read the story of Stephen, you'll learn it's really not easy, okay? Like it really was not easy for Stephen in his life. But I love that Stephen signed up, and we have no indication that he did it because he was best friends with all the widows. He signed up. Philip signed up. Nicholas signed up for people they didn't even know or people that they did not know yet. And when people sign up to be servants in the church, they're signing up for people who have not yet come into the doors of this church yet. They've never driven up in that parking lot. They've never seen a person with an umbrella. They don't even know how to get back to the kids' ministry and drop their kid off. They don't know where youth camp's happening this summer. They don't even know much about our college ministry. They're showing up. We haven't even met them yet. So we actually call a day like today in preparation of the ones who haven't even gotten here yet, as well as those who are here, because we steward this message and we believe it changes people's lives and their life after this life. You know, as most of you guys know, at the conclusion of all of our services, we offer guests a chance to come to our next room. We hope those of you who are guests would come there today. And the full gamut of people shows up in our next room. People who have been longtime followers of God, they just want to come see a little bit more about our church. Those who are far from God and life is messy, everybody shows up. So the people who are pillars in our next room need to be filled with wisdom and the presence of God. That's what they do. They're just everyday people, just loving folks as they walk in the door. And I recently heard a story of one of our guys back there, Craig Crenshaw. Some of you guys know Craig and Christina have been around for quite a while, or even part of our Boston church plant. These guys have been servants for a long time. And Craig was in there. A guy walked in. He had literally just gotten off a Greyhound bus from Austin and felt like he was actually supposed to come to Waco for Antioch. And he showed up, went to a service, went in that room. He had $10 in his pocket, no place to stay, no job. And Craig did what he did, all what our guys back there do. Loved him, listened to him, prayed for him. And that's what we ask of our next room team, to do the best they can to connect and then trust God. But as Craig was going to his car, he said as he went to his car, he just felt this nudge. There's more. And I want to read what he said. He said, as I got in my car, I started thinking I could do more for this guy. And 2 Corinthians 9:11 came to mind. You've been made rich on every occasion so that you can be generous on every occasion. So he actually went back and got him connected to a homeless shelter and started helping him build his resume at a hotel business center, and then started doing what Craig called, I love this, job skill interview discipleship. And began helping him apply to multiple places. This guy never asked Craig for anything. But he just kept seeing the point of greatest need and kept serving. He helped him update his resume, took him to those places, and then he just started meeting with him. And he said, I felt like I needed to spend time with him for the sake of spiritual matters and practical matters. Right there, discipleship. That's what we're talking about. This guy's name was Marcus. He got to know Marcus more and got to connect with him. And he got one of those jobs. During that time, he came and connected to one of our young adult life groups, jumped into the young adult life group and started coming. Unfortunately, his grandmother got sick. He had to go back to Houston to take care of his grandmother. And we still don't know if when that time comes to a close, if he'll come back here or not. But when I heard that story, I thought, Craig was giving his life for the sake of somebody who hadn't even walked in the door, someone he didn't even know. And then he followed the Holy Spirit, came to the point of greatest need, and an impact was made in an individual's life that we may not see till the afterlife. And I thought, pillar. I mean, when I see Craig, I need to give him a golden hammer. So that's what we're talking about as a church, to be an Acts 6 people who just take what the redemption we've been given and say, God, we want to give that out. So when you came in the doors of the church today, you were given a bulletin. In that bulletin is a red insert. It says, be a pillar. And I know you've been thinking for 40 minutes, what is that? And now you know. And so now you know that invitation. And if you flip that over to the other side, you're going to see that there's a few opportunities that are already coming up. Our Sunday kids ministry continues to soar. We usually, can have upwards of 800, 900, 1,000 kids involved with us on a Sunday morning. Kids camp is coming up. If you've never done that, I mean, wow. Our guys do an amazing job. You get to take a great nap on the backside, but you get to impact a lot of kids. I've spoken at that the last couple of years. Love being there. Spoken at youth camp as well. Our youth camp folks are always needing people. And I stood up on this stage about, this past summer with Sean Jones, and we made an appeal. And tons of people who would not say on the giftings assessment that they were middle school oriented showed up and made kids camp what it needed to be. And people actually said, hey, we've got some time. Do y'all need help? And they started plugging into our middle school life groups and high school life groups. People transition out of those roles all the time as they move away, and we're in need again, and that's a great chance to jump in. If you want to host a group like I talked about, we actually have about 41 different areas you can jump into. So here's what my friends do. They're going to put this link up, and I want you to, if you're more tech-oriented, just put that link into your phone, okay? So go for it. Take a picture. Put it in there. If you're not and you're like, can I just write something down and leave a piece of paper? You sure can. So on this right here, you can write your name and your email address, and when you leave, there's tables blocking the doorways, okay? And you just put this in that basket, and we'll connect with you. And we're doing this way in advance. It's not just like help us make it through the fall. It's thinking about the summer. This could be an opportunity for some of you guys to jump into the fall and to say, I want to be a part. And we want to give you a chance to have an Acts 6 moment of yourself. A lot of you, you're already doing this, and we want to thank you for the way you're slugging away, and you have been serving this church in a lot of the non-glorious hidden rooms, and we're so thankful. This is a re-up time for us, and we jump all over. I heard there's a church down the road that actually fires all their members every year, and they start over every year and say, are we all in again? And it calls a collective re-up. And for us, we see this as a season of re-up as we're owning the vision of our church and going to the next place and saying, what's the point of greatest need? I want to end our time together by reading Acts chapter 6, verse 7, this very unusual last sentence of this story. It says that as a part of what God was doing there, that a large number of priests became obedient to the faith. So if y'all will serve, all of our pastors will get saved, is what that basically says. We need you. No, that's not at all what this means. Basically, think about that time. Who were the ones who put Jesus on a cross? There were priests standing there accusing Jesus, not defending him, accusing him. And they stood there as he hung on that cross. And they heard all the stories about his resurrection and him coming back to life. And they did nothing. But now they cannot deny that God is up to something, and they are defecting from it is their livelihood, from what is their past, and they are siding up with the apostles and with the disciples, and they're joining the movement. The ones you'd have never thought now are joining the team. And I read that as I was reading that and studying that, and I just thought, isn't that what Jesus does? And if when you stood up to worship like you're going to do in just a moment, if above you there was like this little cardboard sign about this was my story before and now here, we'd all be like, wow. God touched the one that we didn't think he would touch. And I know that's how I feel about myself. I'm like, I can't believe he touched me with his grace, and I get to be a part of it. And I look at that church and I go, people just saw a need, they met that need, and people from the outside started seeing Jesus, started seeing the church, and they're like, I got to be a part of that. And I just have to wonder how much, because of what happens today, will there be more Marcuses that show up from Austin or all over our city that restoration begins to happen? I think our church is really similar to that church back in those days. We've been experiencing a lot of growth in numbers, but numbers aren't the goal. Making disciples who encounter Jesus and make disciples and live on mission in Waco and America, the nations of the earth, that's the goal. That's what we're all about. That's why we're doing this series. And I hope that you'll join us in the process. Why don't we all stand?